Welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kochatal. In 2021, I think at the end of 2021, somewhere in December, my friend Arun Raj called me and said that he had a concept in mind which he wished to share with me. It was a PowerPoint presentation, and like many other startup presentation, I looked at it with kind of skepticism, saying how would something like this click? Because when you've seen one, you've seen them all. What is so different about this setup that he was trying to put up? How different is the concept in its place? Well, fast forward to 2024, and here we are at Pickle Jar at the Eshwaripuri colony on the high tension road just ahead of Sainikpuri. Now we might ask, what does a pickle jar got to do with something like this? Well, I'm a regular here. I keep shopping often with my wife. But what is more interesting is each time I come, Arun tells me a story about each product, some of which we will try and get him to speak in this video. But I'm sure when you meet him in person, when you ask him about something like a tur dal and say, why is this not shining like the regular tur dal that you get in the supermarket? Why is it looking very coarse? Then you learn the difference between a semi-polished one and a polished one. The nutrition that happens there. Why is it that these kind of dals are actually hand pounded and also bought in to sell in places like this? And there are numerous products here. In fact, I can go on and on. For example, the kadambam. The other day there was a get together here, and one of the gentlemen who was actually selling this, or rather even allowing people to taste it, said that this comes from the real prasadam that is given out at the Madura Meenakshi Kshetram in Tamil Nadu. And sure enough, I bought this last month, and I'm sure things like this, a lot of not just the food items, and that goes beyond it. There is kombucha, which is one of the favorites again. There are jaggery, because I'm a diabetic myself, so I cannot have the sugars that we naturally get in the shops, but I buy from here the jaggery powder, or even sugar in a coarse form, which is not really the kind of sugar that we buy from shops. So you can go on and on. I mean, I'm sure, he would even tell you that he has ghee, which costs double of what it would cost in the shop. But then comes the catch. He says it takes 32 liters of milk to make 1 liter of ghee. And so you can guess the cost why it is. So if somebody is doing it the other way around, selling it at a cheaper cost, maybe there is something in it which is not right. We're not saying everything is wrong, but definitely Pickle Jar is the place where you should be. You should come and actually try and understand. It's not a big shop, it's a very, very small setup. But the amount of information that you would gather from each of the products that is stocked here is enormous. So without much ado, I would leave the floor open to Arun Raj to take us through his journey in Pickle Jar.
Namaste, my name is Arun, and I have been an educator, a farmer, and a traveler. For a good part of my life, I've been traveling across the south of India particularly, and exploring different landscapes as an opportunity to help myself learn, as well as help my children whom I work with understand the different facets of our lifestyles and our landscapes. In the pursuit of trying to understand food, I've traveled different places, and biggest learning for me has been how our recipes are so different in different landscapes. As a child, I always felt my mom's sambar is the only sambar, and I would never ever have anybody else's sambar just because I felt that's the best sambar and that's the only way it's supposed to be made. Only to realize it's so different when I had our recipe in the mathas of Karnataka, Sringeri Matha to be precise. So when I had a delicious recipe at the Sringeri Matha, and I asked what is it, they said it's sambar. To my surprise, it was so delicious, but nothing close to what my mom's recipe was. And that's when I started asking around, how come it's a different recipe altogether? I was told that the sambar they make is full of ingredients coming from the local landscape. That put me through a lot of questions of how we standardize our recipes and eventually force our landscapes to produce, which is a standardized form of what we have today. Our plates are largely about rice, wheat, maize, a few dals, particularly tur dal, moong dal, and urad dal. That's pretty much about our diet, and it's just a combination of these things. Over time, I've discovered how we have shaped our lifestyles around 4 or 5 different ingredients, and that eventually, shapes our health and nutrition. With a limited number of grains and legumes on your plate, you're now looking at very limited nutrition. How could we change this? This is where collective consciousness comes together. Now, at Pickle Jar, we are a farmers community. We are also a community of locals who have come together to help the farmers while we help ourselves in making sure good and honest produce comes to our homes. How do we do it? We grow our own grains, we grow our own legumes. We also do our fresh vegetables and greens. And most of it is driven through orders coming from the local communities. How do we secure ourselves with great nutrition? We could do so by bringing back a lot of these ancient grains into circulation. How do we do it? We talk to a lot of communities, we talk to individuals, we talk to schools, we talk to corporations. We advocate making a wise choice of bringing back these different kinds of grains and legumes which are out of circulation. One of the greatest examples I would like to actually show you is the moong dal. Now, typically a moong dal is green in color, that's what we all know of, and they're much larger than the size of the moong dal what we have here. Now, this one is black in color, as black as your urad dal is, but these are traditional grains or traditional seed which we are trying to preserve with a few communities of farmers who have come together to produce this. Should you make a wise choice of having optimal grains as part of your diet, if you place an order with us, or for that matter any conscious organization which is trying to revive all these ancient grains, these grains would be back in circulation. Mind you, these crops don't come easy. It takes a lot of effort in bringing this safe food to your table. If I were to talk about how rice is grown in your farms, most often than not, there is around a pesticide and fertilizer which goes ahead of the sowing. And in the due process of growing of the crop, there is another round of chemicals which goes on to the crop. On the other hand, when we grow our native grains, what we do is we make concoctions and fertilizers made of cow urine, cow dung, milk, ghee, curds, and so on and so forth, including jaggery, to increase the potency of the soil. This eventually is administered to the soil to increase the microbial activity as well as the nutrition of the soil, thereby naturally increasing the ability of the soil to strengthen your crop. However, in protecting our grains or our crop, we will have to spray another 5 to 10 rounds, depending on the kind of grain, 5 to 10 grams of pesticide, which is again naturally derived pesticide from cow urine and milk and so on and so forth. At times we do use green chili paste, we use garlic and so on and so forth. So the production costs of these grains are generally a bit higher, but making sure the grain actually comes absolutely safe to our table. This is one of my favorite rice, the Rajamudi rice, which was developed for the Wadiyar king of Mysore. It's a very popular grain in Mysore. However, we chose this grain to increase our food diversity in our landscapes, simply because we in Telangana today have very limited scope of grains. It's largely Sona Masuri, HMT, Jai Shri Ram, CD, and there are quite a few varieties which are largely altered grains, altered for certain kind of farming practices or for the markets. That robs you away of the ancient grains which have been developed in this landscape. So is the case with Raktashali. Now this Raktashali is a very thin needle-like grain. It's a rice again, highly potent for pregnant women. Apparently is known to raise the iron levels in your blood. Now there are so many different varieties of rice. In fact, at one point in time we were doing around about 10-15 varieties of grains, but we were struggling to explain this to our customers. But then we are slowly gaining ground. COVID has also forced us to think a little bit more about the environments we live in. It also has forced us to think a little bit more about the kind of food we consume today. It also has forced us to look into relationships. And our attempt here is to bring together all these different elements. With environment as a concern, we felt what's on your plate is going to decide the future of Earth as well as you. What we do here is an attempt to bring back our traditional foods, bring back our traditional food practices, and also relationships. It's important for you to understand who makes your food. It's important for your child to understand, where his food comes from. It's also important for you to understand that you also hold a responsibility in making sure your farmers bring the best of the food for you while also taking home a certain amount of food which sustains his lifestyle and well-being. While we talk about grains, it's also important to understand how we cook our food. We advocate slow cooking, and we actually get our own pots. We make our own pots. These pots are coming from different regions of India, especially South India. This one, which is a very light form, and one of my favorites, the brighter one, is coming from Belgaum region. It's made by an artisan who's been trying to keep her age-old tradition alive. Something which their ancestors have practiced for thousands of years. Now, what is more important for us is just not about the artisan and his or her skills. It's also about where the soil is sourced from. We are very sure about the sourcing of the soils are not from areas which are affected by any kind of chemicals or sludge or some kind of mud. So it's made sure that we source these materials from absolutely clean environments. This particular pot comes from Madanepalli and basically designed by one of my friends. He runs this organization called Bhojanotsav, and they're very conscious again about where the mud is sourced from. That little bell, now that kind of tells you the quality of work as well as the ability of the soil to replicate metals. To bring back these ancient recipes, one of my colleagues, Somasundar, has been working really hard in decoding these recipes from the temple textbooks. One of our product lines is Nivedana, and we have put together the spice mix for Kadambam. Kadambam has been mentioned in different texts, and the earliest records come from the Sangamam period. It's akin to a bisibelebath, but the spices are possibly coming from an era where we didn't have chili in this country. We have used ancient spices which possibly are still available in our landscape to make these spice mixes. Go ahead and try and rediscover our ancient recipes. Recreational drinks are one of those big sellers in our market, and we see a lot of our young people falling prey to artificial drinks. As an alternative, we have a great probiotic drink made of green tea and black tea. How do we make it? We make it by making a concoction of the green and black tea and introducing SCOBY. SCOBY is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast which brews our concoction for 5 to 10 days before the probiotic drink is available for you to consume. We advocate the use of South Indian subsea salts or sea salts. One of them is Gokarna salt, which is sourced from Gokarna, where Kali River meets the Gokarna beach. Strongly advocate using our South Indian salt. With a lot of modern food practices, what we have also forgotten is how flowers were made at our homes. In traditional home setups, grains were brought home, soaked, sprout activated before they were sun dried, and then eventually grinding them. And often it was slow grinding. One of the prominent products in the market is nut butters. Children love their peanut butter. And if you were to ever notice the peanut butters which are available in the market, most of them have anywhere between 3 to 6 or at times 10 different ingredients, and most of them in chemical farms. Our peanut butter has got only and only peanuts, no artificial sweeteners, not salt, nothing whatsoever, and they actually last you at least 5-6 months even in the shelf, provided you're not using any kind of wet spoons. Again, we follow a traditional process. We soak our peanuts, we sprout activate them, we sun dry them. At least 50% of this soap is turmeric paste, followed by moong dal and chana dal. And then we have essential oils coming from the flowers. And then we use a little bit of lye, which in technical terms is called caustic soda. But what needs to be understood is caustic soda is used for saponification, for the whole lathering process. But mind you, the amount of caustic soda what we use is so little. For around about 1500 grams of soap, we use 0.013 grams of caustic soda. So the volatile matter is actually gone from the soap, and in the eventual output, what we have discovered in our lab tests is there is not a single trace of caustic soda left in our soaps. Likewise, we have our neem soap, which has got 50% of neem leaf paste, followed by very similar ingredients, and what you have is a very simple and natural soap which doesn't leave you dry upon using it. Again, this is also produced by a bunch of artisans, soap makers, who are conscious about how we make our soaps. While we talk about bringing all these products, all these produce to your plate and to your homes, we are extremely conscious of how much money actually goes back to these farmers as well as producers of conscious products. At least, as a repeat, at least 60% to 85% of the money goes back to the producers of these goodies. This journey was possibly impossible without many people who have been part of this movement. I'd like to thank many people, but I also want to introduce my team. People who are not here are Kalyani ji from Kadri, is Shiva from Raichoti, Niranjan from Bidar, Jayant from Ghatkesar, and I'd like to introduce my co-partner in this journey, Surinder, is my childhood friend. He and I had come together in August 2021, thought about this idea, and ever since I've been working on the ground, traveling along and getting this store up. We are what we are at this point in time because of a lot of work we have put together in this journey. I'd like to also introduce Jagdish. He's been with us for the last 1 year. He's been contributing a lot to this space and working with the farmers, managing the logistics, the store, and so on and so forth. Along with us, I also have Manohara, one of our oldest companions. She's been responsible for putting together all the flowers, the laddus, the peanut butters, and she's been a great kombucha brewer herself. So a whole lot of goodies what been served at this place has been her work. Our attempt has been to have a larger outreach to people, come together as communities. The collective consciousness is important to not just about having the safe food, but also preserving our traditional practices. In doing so, we will have to go ahead and go far to support our farmers. We would urge you to go ahead, meet us, talk to us, and also talk to our farmers. We are based out in Sainikpuri, 12A, Eshwaripuri colony. You could walk in any time, talk to any of our team members to know more about us. Thank you.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is food for thought from Arun Raj. But the way he and his team perform miracles out here is absolutely amazing. It is not just that they make everything in-house, they source it from farmers, and we are told the farmers get a good amount of it, 60 to 70% of the amount that you pay for the product goes to the farmers. This is very important, because when we talk of having sustainable living, we talk of giving our farmers a fair due for their products, then you got to listen to the stories of Arun Raj and his team at Pickle Jar. Do drop in. It will be a wonderful experience for you. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.